Like, man, we don't lose.
Into Mic'd Up, Jake LeBon, along with Kyle Manthe here on this Wednesday afternoon. We will get to Mike DeCourcy coming up at the bottom of the hour. Talk a little bit more Big 12 hoops as well as K-State and KU. From the Big O Tires text line, very exciting right now to know that you can win either a dogfight or a shootout. When the last few years under Weber, you knew you would lose if the other team scored more than 65. That's why I think this is a great win for Kansas State. This was not the high scoring affair that they're used to. Now, I do think there are some concerns that Kansas State really had a hard time stopping guys inside. But then Texas has got those type of dudes. So I wonder if it's just simply Oklahoma State is that good of a defensive team. And sometimes mismatches happen during the game. And Boone had a good mismatch for Oklahoma State. But K-State finally had a game in which the offense didn't click and they found a way to get it done. So I think that is exciting stuff if you are Kansas State. It really, really does. Also from the Big O Tires text line, K-State only had 2 scholarship players about 9 months ago. And yet they're playing together as if this is a team that is all seniors and they started out as freshmen. That's how smooth that they are playing. It's really, really an exciting time at Bramlage. They got TCU coming up on Saturday. That is not a gimme. And then you got KU coming up on Tuesday, which should be one of the most exciting games in honestly about 3 years for K-State, especially in Bramlage. Getting some news going on real quick before we get to the bottom of the hour on the NFL side of things. This happened late yesterday. We were off the show, but DeAndre Hopkins looks like it's going to get traded. One of the best wide receivers and who is a game changer is going to get traded. It looks like from the Arizona Cardinals, which their entire organization has no clue what they're doing. If you are a team that has a rookie quarterback or a rookie contract, that is where DeAndre Hopkins is going to go. New England, the Jets, Jacksonville, Tennessee, the Colts, Chicago, the Giants, Washington, whoever's going to have an incoming rookie quarterback, that's where I think you're going to see DeAndre Hopkins go. If they could make it work for the Jets, if I were the Jets, I'd go try to trade. Imagine Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and DeAndre Hopkins. It's too bad that Zach Wilson might not be the guy. Maybe Mike White is, but same thing for Chicago. Maybe you decide to keep with Love, or excuse me, Fields. It'd be a great spot. But that is huge news that one of the best wide receivers is going to be traded. We'll get one final time out. Coming up next, Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News joins us to talk all things college hoops here on Mic'd Up. Jake Lavon along with Kyle Manthe today, filling in for Fulton Caster. Fulton will be back coming up tomorrow. We got a lot more to get to coming up on this edition. We'll get to the Chiefs as the beginning of the year. We asked two things for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's it. Two things. Did they bring us those two things? We'll get to that. Everyone loves the list. Plus, we'll talk more about KU and Oklahoma in the game yesterday at Allen Fieldhouse. The magic at Allen Fieldhouse continues. Doesn't matter the players or who is there. It is very difficult to win at Allen. But right now, we're going to talk all things college basketball, Big 12, KU, K-State, and maybe even a little Iowa State. Right now, we bring in Mike DeCourcy, longtime college basketball scribe for the Sporting News. You can follow him on Twitter at TSN Mike, one of the great basketball writers out there. Mike, first thing I've got to ask you is, did you see Kansas State being ranked 11th at the beginning of this year? We can't believe what is happening right now in Manhattan with what Jerome Tang has done in 10 months.
Oh, I put all my money, my entire net worth on K-State's futures. Absolutely. So I'll be retired. No, I'm just kidding. I don't bet on sports much. I think I placed one bet in the entirety of 2022. I bet the Steelers to win more than 7.5 games when I was in the Bahamas on vacation. So I'll be cashing that massive $20 check fairly soon.
There we go.
But yeah, what Jerome is doing is wonderful. It's a wonderful story because he obviously waited longer than he should have had to get a head coaching job, and Kansas State is the beneficiary of that to a tremendous level. Bringing in Keontae Johnson, making Marquise Noel even better than he already was. Putting him in a position to even be better than he already was, which was a really good college point guard. Now he's an elite college point guard. I think it's a really cool story. Very happy for Jerome and the Wildcats and their fans.
What has made him make this transition? They had 2 guys under scholarship last year, but they bring in 10 new guys, and he's never been a head coach before. Like, this shouldn't happen. So I know you've talked to Jerome Tang a lot, and you've talked to Scott Drew a bunch. What is it that you think he's done to turn this thing around so quickly?
Well, I think that over time, going all the way back to when Scott and Jerome were getting going at Baylor, I mean, they built a really functional program, a program that was based on guys playing together and getting the players who were there better and being really good scouts of players. I think early on they signed a lot of high-end guys who didn't always work out, and they weren't bad players, but they weren't the players quite maybe that they were touted to be. And then after that, they started to say, okay, well, like what would work better? And that's when you saw the real Purdue resurgence. Going from being really, really good, but maybe a little bit disappointing in March, to really great and elite in March. And that was with high-end scouting. I was thinking about this because obviously I'm talking to Kansas. I was thinking about Grady Dick and what I saw last night from him, which was astonishing. I don't even know what the box score said. I don't know what his numbers were. I came in with about 10 minutes left in the game, and his performance was mesmerizing. And it wasn't like making shots, which I know he can do, but making plays and making things happen and making things not happen for Oklahoma. And I'm like, sometimes now I think that basketball has changed, but evaluation hasn't universally. A guy like Grady Dick should have been like the top 5 player in last year's class. High-end athlete, elite shooter. How is that not? I mean, great positional size, can play either the 2 or the 3 at 6'7", 6'8". Why is that not a top 5 player? And now you see him on the floor, and he's a top 5 freshman. So I think that's what Jerome and Scott did, was they looked at players and said, okay, how will they be? How will they perform? not what's their ranking or star rating or whatever, but how will they perform? And that's when you see your Davion Mitchells and guys like that, and now at LJ Cryer and players like that, and you're seeing that reflected in K-State's performance as well. Now that Jerome is there.
When it comes to Keontae Johnson, I think it's the greatest story in college basketball, and I think if he were at a bigger program, he would get a lot more love because, I mean, this is a guy who spent 14 days in the hospital 2 years ago, and I know Marquise Noel is the guy who is putting up just insane numbers, but I think Keontae Johnson's the reason why they're 15-1. Like, he is the glue, he is the straw that stirs the drink. Did you expect this from Keontae Johnson this year in a new system and new everything? We know he had talent. He was preseason SEC first team, but I don't know if we thought, 20-8 and shooting 42% from three.
Well, I think the key there and why it's surprising is because of the time off. Take Keontae Johnson without the episode and take him out of Florida's lineup and stick him in Kansas State's. Doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, he was a terrific player at Florida, and his ill health certainly impacted everything that happened at Florida subsequently. The program took a big blow when he was forced to not play immediately and then subsequently. And so, absolutely, I'm not surprised that he's capable of being a great Big 12 player. What I'm surprised by is that there wasn't really much of a transition once he started to play again. There wasn't I've been out for a while, so give me a little time. I mean, he just started to rip and run from the very beginning. It's been extraordinarily impressive. I think they're both great. I was talking, I do a regular spot in Kansas City, and I said yesterday that there aren't very many teams like that ever have two All-Americans, even out of, like, we do 3 teams out of 15 guys. Almost never have 2. Because if you have 2, you're probably one of the absolute very best teams in the country. I mean, like a team that's playing for a national championship. And even most of those don't have 2. But I'm not sure that you can put 15 guys out there that are having better seasons than those 2.
It's incredible. We're talking with Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Fantastic and longtime basketball writer for the Sporting News. Follow him on Twitter at TSN Mike. Can they hold up? I know they're 4-0 in Big 12 play. The Big 12 is going to be an absolute just meat grinder. But do you think that this is a team that has played 16 games and, it's over half the season is already done? Do you think this is a team that can hold up and end up near, either, win the Big 12 or finish second and end up as a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament?
Here's what I can't tell you. They're going to fail at some point in this season. They're going to have a bad day, or they're going to play KU and lose by 2 or something. I mean, they're not going to go whatever and 1. Okay. So what I can't tell you is how they react to that failure or a back-to-back loss or whatever it might be. I can't tell you that because they haven't been through it together. So they can't tell you it either. I suspect that Jerome will do a really good job managing that and making them understand you're playing in the deepest league in the country. Perhaps the only league in college basketball history that goes 100% deep. When I covered the Big East in 1990-91, I was covering Pitt at the time. Sean Miller was on that team. And that team that league had 8 out of 9 teams that were tournament contenders, got 7 out of 9, which remains the highest percentage in NCAA tournament history. But there was a Boston College out there taking 15 losses out of 16 games. So everybody knew they at least had that to look forward to. Right now, unless Texas Tech continues to go in the direction they're going, unless that happens, you're not getting that in this league. And so they're going to take some L's. And how do they respond to that? That's the thing that they have to be able to show. From a performance standpoint, they've shown they're good enough. I mean, they went to Baylor and TCU, went back to back. They went to my bad. They went to Baylor and won. They didn't beat TCU, right? They
at Texas.
They Yeah, Texas. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Texas and Baylor back to back. Right. I melded that TCU loss to Baylor to Iowa State,
Yeah.
together with that. But it's okay. They went to Texas, so they're going to they're good enough to win the kinds of games and the number of games that you're required to do to get the top 4 seed, to contend for the Big 12 title and all that. But that coping with failure, or the struggle element, is the thing that is what Kansas never has a problem with. They never have a problem with it, and because they have had that happen to them in Bill's time every now and then, not often, but every now and then, and they always come through it. Is it Bill? Is it the guys? Who knows what it is? But K-State has to show that they can manage that.
Well, let's move over to Bill and the Jayhawks. The game last night, what does it say more about? Does it say more about KU? Does it say more about Oklahoma, the way that they couldn't finish? Or does it say more about just Allen Fieldhouse is a house of horrors for everybody not named KU?
Well, I think it says about KU, because if you looked at that game, and they didn't play well, and they're going to, again, everybody's going to have nights like that in this league, because Oklahoma knew that they had to have it. That Oklahoma's now I have 7 teams in the Big 12 in my NCAA tournament bracket for Fox. Oklahoma State are very close. Texas Tech is not close. They're the only team in the league that's not close right now. They don't have anything on their resume that says NCAA, and now I think they're 0-4 in the league. So they're the only ones that aren't close. They needed that, and it was an opportunity, and they went in and they gave it that effort early on. Like, if we do this, can we get this? And they sustained it. But at the end, I talked about that Grady Dick performance and the rebounds he was getting and the deflections he was getting and the balls he was hunting down. Even though he wasn't extraordinary offensively late, he just made so many game-changing plays in those final several minutes. Jalen Wilson was having an awful night by his standards.
Mm-hmm.
Been one of the 3 or 4 best players in college basketball, way below his standard. But when they needed him, he makes a big shot. And that's I think it says much more about Texas. I think it says a lot about Oklahoma, that this is who they are. They're going to give it a go. And I don't think they're going to relent. But at some point, they obviously need to get some wins if they're going to stay in the hunt for a tournament bid.
Do you think KU can make a deep run if they got a guy like KJ Adams? And I say that, and of course he had a career game yesterday. It just seems like KU always has had a big guy inside, and this year they don't. And I always go back to the Tennessee game. I mean, Tennessee looked like they were playing a different game than KU. So I always wonder if KU has enough guys inside for the long haul.
History says you can't win the national championship built like they're built. And there may be no better example of that than the reigning champion, who happens to also come from the same camp. Because at the end of that game, David McCormack was the most important player on the floor. He should have been the most outstanding player at the Final Four. Still, I don't know how he feels about it. I'm still mad. But that you usually need to have a big guy. I remember, I don't know, so I haven't done the numbers in a while, but 6 or 7 years ago, I did a research, and looked into like how many, what's the smallest team wins it. And you got to go back to like 62 UCLA or something to find a team that didn't have a massive presence of some sort. And it goes all the way from Alcindor / Jabbar at the very top of the chart to David, who was a really good college basketball player, but not a superstar. Still the most outstanding player, the uncrowned most outstanding player at the Final Four. But there's variance in there, but not in terms of the size. So they can't, I would say, and they won't agree with this. Bill's going to say, what do you mean? But I don't think they can win it. But that doesn't mean you can't be there. There have been lots of teams that have gotten to the Final Four without 6'10", 6'11". 2018, Cameron Krutwig, I think, was 6'9" for Loyola. So you can get there, and why not take? And then maybe you can make history if you get there. Like if you're in Houston, you can take your shot, right? So that's what I would say about KU, is that I love KJ Adams. He reminds me of some of my favorite players in college basketball. Kevin Freeman with 99 UConn. That's who I keep thinking about when I watch him play. Just a guy who's super energy and really smart about how he plays and knows what he can do to make his team better. I love him. But obviously, he's not the ideal starting center on a national championship team.
All righty, my last two questions for you, two for the road. You can just give me a quick answer for this. Right now, who is the player of the year in college basketball?
Well, I would probably say that at this point, I am somewhat, I would probably have to go with Zach Edey at Purdue because he's the best player on our, on a number one seed. And then he would be joined on an All-America team by Jalen Wilson, by Brandon Miller at Alabama, a few other guys. But I'd say right now it would be Edey.
Alrighty, and a lot of KU fans have asked this question. Is Grady Dick, is he one and done? Is he gone, or will he be back for a sophomore year?
I'd be surprised if he's not coveted in the draft. He's got everything you want. And so I never tell people to do whatever makes you happy. But I think and do whatever makes you happy, but don't do dumb stuff. Like, don't do things that damage your prospect. Like, there were two players at Michigan last year who I believe would have been lottery contenders this year. And instead went last year and became second round picks. Don't do that to yourself. If I'm wrong and Grady doesn't get that kind of embrace from the NBA, then he absolutely should return. But I think he will. I haven't checked the mocks or anything lately, but I'd be shocked if you didn't see his name somewhere in the first dozen or so picks.
Mike, as always, great stuff. Always enjoy reading your pieces at the Sport News as well as Fox. Thank you so much for the time, and enjoy the rest of the basketball this week.
All right, Jake, thank you.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Mike's fantastic. Really good stuff. Really good Twitter follow. Follow Mike on Twitter at TSN Mike if you want to check out all things college basketball. But there's a little outsider's perspective on Marquise Noel, Keontae Johnson, Jerome Tang, and we get. I've had a few texts come in over the last couple of, especially when he was got on a heater early on. Is Grady Dick going to be gone? I hate to tell you this, KU fans, but yes, Grady Dick will not be back. I will be very surprised if Grady Dick is not a lottery pick and playing in the NBA at this time next year. We'll get a quick timeout. Coming up next, we'll wrap up this 1 o'clock hour here on Mic'd Up. this noon hour here on Mic'd Up. Jake and Kyle with you. Fulton off today. He'll be back with us tomorrow. We will get to more of the Chiefs. We'll talk KU Oklahoma. We will get to all of that. And we'll talk with Kels Robinette of the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star as well, coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. Kyle, I have to ask you this. 8 years ago today, you know what happened 8 years ago today that the NFL, they've done a lot better since then, but do you know what happened 8 years ago today?
I believe the event you're referring to is the infamous Dez Bryant catch, no catch.
Yes. Did Dez catch it? So, if that play happens today, is it a catch or is it incomplete? Do you think it's a catch or do you think it's incomplete? If it happens today,
I'm going to say it'd be a catch, I think. Although there's really never going to be a... someone's always going to argue. There's never going to be consensus on anything.
I think it's incomplete still today. Even though it looks like he has control of it. Like, is it a catch? Yes. He caught it. It's either a touchdown or it's incomplete. But he has it, gripped kind of like, you're holding the football in your forearm and he leans forward and it dislodges. I don't think it's a catch today because he didn't make a football move afterwards. So the people who are still upset about whether or not it's a catch or not, I don't think it's a catch today. I really don't. But that just goes to show you again, it's been 8 years, and has the NFL really changed and altered the rule? No, not really, because I don't think it's a catch today. But that popped up on the feed. Coming up, we're going to get to a little Chiefs and where they're at now. It is hour number 2 here on Mike Up. Thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Jake LeBon and Kyle Manthe with you. Fulton Castro could only handle me for one day, and then he needed to take a break. He'd gotten used to me not being here for about 10 straight days, and he thought, you know what, I can handle Kyle. Kyle and Fulton have a good connection, and he's like, nope, I gotta bolt. Fulton will be back tomorrow. Fulton, I can tell you this. We have a text thread that goes on between us sports guys with myself, Fulton, Dan, and Brendan, and Fulton was having a tough go of it during the KU game last night. It was not a good situation for Fulton yesterday, but we'll talk more KU, Oklahoma. We'll get to K-State with Kellis Robinette of the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. We always talk with Kellis on all things K-State athletics in the 2 o'clock hour on Wednesdays. Everyone loves the list. There's only 5 head coaching openings right now, but we're going to go with the jobs that you definitely wouldn't want. There might be some other openings. Sean McVay might not be back with the Rams. I am not sold with Staley and the Chargers. Who knows? There might be some more openings as well. We will get to that for Everyone Loves the List coming up on this edition of Mic'd Up. As always, you can follow us on YouTube. Go to our website, 580wibw.com. Right there, smack dab. You can see it. You can check us out on YouTube. Go to youtube.com, sports on 580. Very simple, very easy. Hit us up on our Big O Tires text line, 785-272-9429. Outside of Topeka, 785-272-9429. Would love to get your thoughts on this Wednesday. At the beginning of this year, we were evaluating the Kansas City Chiefs. Tyreek Hill had just gotten traded. Everybody was wondering what's going to happen to the Chiefs. Remember, even at Bart Scott said the Chiefs are going to finish last. You have a whole bunch of other hot takers out there going, oh, the Chiefs aren't going to win the division. If they weren't going to win it, I can understand that. If you want to say the Chargers, I mean, I wouldn't pick the Chargers. The Chiefs have destroyed this division for 8 straight years. You got to pick the Chiefs until they actually lose. But we were discussing the Chiefs during training camp. We went through our, headlines and questions leading up to the start of the season. We said the Kansas City Chiefs this year, if they have a top 5 offense, they still got Kelsey. I was high on Juju. We all know that. The offensive line is going to be a lot better. They should be able to run the football a lot better. That should be a top 5 offense when you got Mahomes. So we said if the Kansas City Chiefs were a top 5 offense and the defense was middle of the pack, we don't need a top 10 defense, but you can't have a bottom 5 defense. Just a middle of the pack defense. The Kansas City Chiefs would contend for a Super Bowl. That is what the preseason expectations were for the Kansas City Chiefs. At the end of the regular season, according to all the information out there that we have, which is a lot nowadays, I'm not going to use the A word, all right? Won't use analytics, because all analytics are information. But with all the data that we have, the Kansas City Chiefs have the best offense in the NFL. And it honestly is not that close, considering the Buffalo Bills have the second best offense. The Buffalo Bills are closer to the 9th best offense in the NFL than they are to the Kansas City Chiefs, who are first. Let me say that again. The Chiefs are so far in front of the Bills that the Bills are closer to the ninth best offense than they are the first. The Bills are bunched up offensively with the Eagles, the Bengals, the 49ers, the Lions, and then right behind them are the Dolphins and the Cowboys. But the Chiefs are in a whole nother quadrant damn near on the offensive side of things. That is how good offensively they are. They are number one, no questions asked. And individually, they go to show it as well. Travis Kelce, 1,400 yards. Mahomes set the record for yards from scrimmage throwing and running, most passing yards, most passing touchdowns. I mean, they distributed it as if they didn't have a number one anybody. So offensively, they're number one. Better than we expected. Even the people such as myself and Fulton who thought that this offense was going to be good. I did not think they would be number one good, but I didn't think that they would be, number 10. I figured they'd be top 5. But they are number one, no questions asked. On the defensive side of things, if you look at defensive EPA, you just look at the defense as a whole, they are absolutely smack dab right in the middle. Right in the middle. Not negative, where the Bears are terrible, the Lions are awful, the Raiders stink, the Dolphins aren't any good, the Seahawks suck on defense, the Texans. They are right in the middle. They have the average defense in the NFL. They're a little bit behind the Jaguars and the Bucks and the Saints, but they are right in the middle. The Kansas City Chiefs did exactly what we expected them to do this year when it comes to the defense. That's what we wanted them. We wanted them to be average. We weren't expecting top 10 defense. You can't expect a top 10 defense when you didn't address the pass rush outside of going and getting an older Carlos Dunlap, drafting a rookie with pick number 31. You still had pass rush questions. Secondary was completely rookies. McDuffie, Watson, Williams. And then you added Reed and L'Jarius Sneed. I mean, the secondary was a lot of questions. We were not hoping for top 10 defense. I mean, that would be like, I'm hoping for a top 5 offense for the Royals this year. That is unrealistic. You shouldn't have those expectations. They did what exactly we were hoping for. And they exceeded them, to me, on the pass rush side of things, which is number 2 in the NFL in sacks. And they exceeded our expectations on the offensive side because they are number 1 and it's not close. And if they were going to do that, we said they're going to be in contention to win the Super Bowl. And this is what we've got. Now, they got the number 1 seed in kind of the very most unique way that we've probably ever seen the NFL with what has gone down over the last 2 weeks. But this is exactly the Chiefs team that we were hoping for. We are going to rely on number 15. And how good is number 15? At the end of this year, the Kansas City Chiefs, under Patrick Mahomes, is having the greatest offensive dynasty in the history of the NFL. This is more of some information for you, but it's very simple. This is the top 20 NFL offenses by conversion rate. What that means is converting first downs. moving the chains. Hardly any 3 and outs, generating first downs. And normally when you generate first downs, you know the old saying, first down, touchdown. The Kansas City Chiefs over the last 22 years. Since 1999, Patrick Mahomes has led the Kansas City Chiefs offense. They are essentially a top 15 offense every single year in the last 22 years. When it comes to generating first downs. This year, they are ranked number 11 in the last 22 years. That's 32 teams for 22 years. This offense was the 11th best offense at converting first downs in the last 20 years. Think about that. Patrick Mahomes has not had below the 15th best offense converting first downs since he's been a starting quarterback. And that was in 2019 when they won the Super Bowl. That year, they were ranked 15th in the last 22 years. This year, they're ranked 11th. The 2018 offense, which he won the MVP, was ranked 6th. 2020 was ranked 5th. And last year, in 2021, the Chiefs had the 3rd best offense according to generating first downs in the last 22 years. This is why the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill. This is why the Chiefs are still going to invest more on the defensive side when you have got Patrick Mahomes and you have got him under center. He's never been less than the 15th best offense in the last 22 years at generating first downs. So when you see a 3 and out, that is, I mean, it's almost to the point where we look at the Chiefs and we're just, that's pathetic. How can they go 3 and out? Because they never do. And this goes to show you. This year, the Kansas City Chiefs did not have a 1,000-yard receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster had, I think, 933 yards. I understand Travis Kelce is in there, and he's the greatest tight end to ever play. But not having a wide receiver go for 1,000 yards, and you are the 11th best offense at generating first downs, that's incredible. That's a testament to Mahomes and Andy Reid. But this is what we were not expecting this on the offensive side. The offense has been better than what we were hoping for, and the defense is exactly what we were hoping for. And the Kansas City Chiefs get the 1 seed. And hopefully they play the Jaguars or the Ravens or the Dolphins. Even though the Dolphins have announced today that Skylar Thompson is going to be starting. I don't even know what the odds that the Dolphins can win the game against the Bills has to be below 5%. I know we say any given Sunday. I think this would be one of the biggest upsets in playoff history if the Dolphins beat the Bills coming up on Sunday. I just see no chance of that. And I really like Skylar Thompson. We know him at Kansas State, but I just don't see that happening. I really, really don't. But I'm hoping that is the case. I would love the Dolphins to win. I think that would be fantastic. That would be fantastic because then we play the Dolphins. And I wouldn't worry about the Dolphins much. But putting a bow on the regular season for the Kansas City Chiefs, It couldn't have gone any better. You got the 1 seed. You're getting healthy. You have the bye week. Your defense is playing better here down the stretch. You're getting a pass rush. Your offense is still elite. They are a top 10 offense in the last 20 years. It's incredible. It really, really is. Coming up, we will get to Everyone Loves the List. There are 5 head coaching vacancies. What are the worst head coaching vacancies that you would want as a head coach? We will get to that. We'll talk a little KU hoops. Kels Robinette will join us. We'll get to all of that coming up here on Mic'd Up. Everyone Loves the List. Today's edition, very, very simple. We have 5 head coaching vacancies. Give me the worst head coaching situations that you would choose. Very simple. Very simple. I think there might be more depending upon what happens in the playoffs. I think if the Bucks beat the Cowboys, I think McCarthy's gone. I don't know if Staley's going to be back. Let's say the Jags beat the Chargers. I don't know if Staley's going to be back. So I think there still might be some shakeups when it comes to the football side of things for head coaches. So who do you got for number 4?
With there only being 5 openings so far, I kind of actually don't mind this as a destination. I have the Texans number 4.
Okay.
I like their combination. It seems like they have a direction, which was being bad this year
Mm-hmm.
intentionally. They have the number 2 pick. They actually have all the draft picks and more this year. So I have Texans at 4.
Texans at 4. Number 4, I have the Colts at number 4. They're going to get a good draft pick. I think they're going to go out and get a quarterback. I do think Ballard is a good GM, even though he's bungled the whole quarterback situation. I think roster wise, if you've got a quarterback, then you can spend on other things. So number 4 for me, the Colts.
I have the Colts at number 3. I think they're kind of similar to the team I have at number 2. I just kind of like their talent a little bit more. Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. That's a good starting point for an offense at least. And then they do have the higher draft pick.
Number 3, I've got the Broncos. I don't think it's a terrible situation because defensively they're really good. They're very good. I think if you get the right coach in there who can help Russell Wilson improve a little bit, that's why I don't think the Broncos is a terrible position because their defense is really good. They're gonna have a lot of those guys back again. You got some young, really good players. You got Simmons under contract. You've got Surtain, who is a terrific corner. I think the Broncos, if they get the right coach, can make a big jump if that coach can get in touch and figure out the whole Russell Wilson situation.
Number 2, I have the Panthers. I have them. They're kind of similar to the Colts in that they've been wandering around looking for quarterbacks. They're just doing it in a less commonly known names than the Colts have been doing. They just have a little bit worse pick than the Colts and not as much cap space to spend. I guess they're a weaker division than the Colts, you could say.
I got
Maybe,
you.
although both divisions are pretty bad. But I have the Colts or the Panthers at 2. I wouldn't want to go there.
Number 2 for me, the Cardinals. If they're gonna trade DeAndre Hopkins and you are losing JJ Watt, your defense isn't very good. You're in a little bit more of a difficult division with the 49ers. The Seahawks are better. And I don't think Kyler Murray's the dude. So I got the Cardinals number 2.
Number 1 is pretty easy for me. I have the Broncos.
You think that's the worst job?
I just think Russell Wilson stinks now. You can't get out of that contract.
Okay.
They don't have their draft picks, and they're in a division with Patrick Mahomes, which
Yeah.
is pretty much the worst death sentence you can sign up for the next 5 years.
I've got number 1, the Texans. I think the Texans are the worst job because they are the Texans. Fired 1-year coaches back to back. I know they got draft picks. I know they got capital, but I don't trust the Texans. I think it's the worst job opening. Coming up next, we'll talk a little KU hoops. We'll get to that after a little market update here on Mic'd Up. Mic'd up, Jake LeBon. Along with Kyle Manthe, Fulton Caster off today. He will be back joining us coming up tomorrow. And tomorrow I will not be here for some of the show because I'll be heading to Joplin, Missouri for a little Washburn men's and women's basketball. But we will get to more K-State as K-State took care of business against the Cowboys of Oklahoma State at Bramlage Coliseum. But do want to go a little bit into the Jayhawks and the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma played the absolute perfect game plan for 35 minutes. They slowed down the game. They made it miserable for KU on offense. KU didn't have a field goal for like 11 minutes in the game, and all they did was shoot free throws, but yet they were still somehow in the game in the second half. They face guarded Grady Dick to the point where KU had no idea how to run offense. They had zero offensive rhythm. They were basically going one-on-one. No ball movement, no plays. It was just Jalen Wilson back down an Oklahoma guy, and hopefully he can make it, or maybe a transition attempt, but they got fouled. They went 11 minutes without a field goal. KU did. Everything Oklahoma did for 35 minutes was perfect. You led by 10 at Allen Fieldhouse with 5 minutes to go. I don't even know how many times that has happened at Allen Fieldhouse in the last 15 years. I bet being up 10 with 5 minutes to go, maybe 6 times, maybe. And then Allen Fieldhouse happened. Allen Fieldhouse happened. KU down 10, OU up 10, however you want to put it, 5 minutes left. And then Allen Fieldhouse happened. Now, watching the game, it felt like KU didn't have a run in them. Like, I really thought with 5 minutes ago, I'm like, this one doesn't feel the same. This one didn't feel like, because there's always times when you're watching the game where you're like, oh, KU's going to come back and win this one. Oh, KU's going to do it. Yep, you know they are. That's just the way it is. It's Allen Fieldhouse. It's the fog. It's that one felt different. It felt like Oklahoma was going to survive and win. It really did. Kyle, when you were watching the game, you watched, finishing, second half, there's 12 minutes to go. It's back and forth, and 10 minutes to go. KU's down 10, OU's up 10. Did it feel like to you like the same old, KU's going to find a way to win this thing? Or did it feel like, oh man, this is going to happen? KU's a 10.5 point favorite and they're going to lose. What did you feel with 5 minutes to go when it was 71-61?
At the 5 minute mark, I assumed Oklahoma had it. I agree with you. It didn't feel like they had a run left in them.
And normally you do feel like you're like, oh, KU's going to come back and win this thing. Like, anytime I'm watching KU at Allen Fieldhouse and they're down with 5 minutes to go, it feels like they're going to still come back and win. But that one, I didn't think KU was going to win. I really didn't. It just didn't. And I know Fran Fraschilla is not for everybody. Some people like Fran, other people don't. I like Fran. I think Fran does a nice job. And the entire game, Fraschilla is saying to OU, don't let him go on the run. Don't let him go on the run. At the end of the first half, Oklahoma was playing well. And there's like 2 minutes left. And Fraschilla's like, doesn't matter. Don't let him go on a run. Like, they can score 7 points in a minute and a half. Don't let him go on a run. Like, he kept saying that in the second half, even when KU had not made a field goal for 10 minutes. Fraschilla says, OU, keep doing it. Don't let him go on that run. And he's right, though. KU always has that run. It normally happens at about like the 13-minute mark of the second half, from like the 13-minute mark to like the 9-minute mark. It always seems like it happens then, where KU just goes bonkers. And KU didn't. That was part of that. They didn't score a field goal for 10 minutes. It was like the 15-minute mark. It's like the 6-minute mark or something like that. And with 5 minutes to go, Fraschilla was still pounding that. And he was so right. And then one little bad defensive play, one little turnover, an offensive rebound, kick out Jalen Wilson for a 3, little run out. Harris throws it to KJ Adams with the dunk. And KU is down by 1. Missed layup, another run out. KU give it to McCullough, lays it up and in. KU's up by 2 now. In a matter of 2 minutes. It was the run that they were waiting for, and Oklahoma for 35 minutes played exceptional. Slowed the game down. It was a bad basketball game. I remember talking to Brendan here during or before our show, and it was not an aesthetically pleasing game of basketball. It was a bad basketball game. And Oklahoma just melted down. They forgot what was happening and they ran out of gas. I think that was fatigue because they put so much into that 35 minutes. And then they went, you want to talk about hero ball. Sherfield had played awesome all game. 38 seconds left. Oklahoma's down by 2, and he just hoists an NBA 3 guarded right wing. He's like, man, I don't know what else to do. We're just giving up a 14-0 run. We're down by 2, or 12-0 run. We're down by 2. This is terrible. Screw it. And he just chucked it up into the air. Like, I had no chance, Kyle. I mean, do you want to talk about, that was, I think, worse. Do you remember when Carter from West Virginia in the NCAA tournament took like the absolute worst shot I've ever seen against Texas A&M? I mean, he was hunting for that ball. Hunting for it. Sherfield, I don't know. Once he let that go, I was like, well, they lost. Like, there's no chance. No chance at all. OU ran out of gas, and KU went full Allen Fieldhouse. If you don't think that Allen Fieldhouse are in nightmares and in the dreams of other players, deep down in their subconscious it is, because games like this, the West Virginia game that happened, I think like 5 or 6 years ago when KU was down by like 12 with 2.5 minutes to go, and they end up winning it. And then this last one, like KU was dead. They had nothing going for them. And OU gifted it to him. Absolutely gifted it to him. Bill Self was even more honest about his team. I mean, they sucked. They did. They could not figure it out until the last 5 minutes. Here's what Bill Self had to say about the game against Oklahoma.
Give OU credit.
Hold on.
A lot of good
You, according to the media there, missed 21 layups. And I agree with Bill Self. You can't say, oh, we missed 21 layups. So whittle it down to 10. We should have made half those layups. That's 20 points. But that's credit to OU that made them tough. Like, OU played well. I think OU had more to do with KU playing bad than just KU having an off night. I think that's not giving enough credit to Oklahoma defensively, because they are a good defensive team and they showed it in the game. You don't hold KU without a field goal for 10 minutes and you're lucky. That's not how it works. But KU just kept plugging away and went on the KU Allen Fieldhouse run. And Bill Self was asked about that. He was asked about Allen Fieldhouse and the question leading up to it. And Bill Self does kind of what Bill Self says. He doesn't want to give too much credit to the building.
That being said,
%. They made some big time plays at the end of the game. No question. And then finally, with the Big 12, with KU surviving and K-State holding on, here's what Bill Self had to say about the Big 12 this year. KU beating Oklahoma is a big sigh of relief because that's a game that you should have won. Here's KU's schedule the rest of the way for the month of January. They got Iowa State. Just like we all thought, Iowa State, K-State tied atop the league, 4-0 in Big 12 play. We all thought it. They're ranked 14th in the country. So you got Iowa State ranked 14th. That's Saturday. Then you got Kansas State ranked 11th on Tuesday. Then you got TCU on the 21st, ranked 17th. Then you're at Baylor. Then you are at Kentucky. Yes, I get Kentucky is on a gigantic struggle bus. It's still at Kentucky. And then you're back home against Kansas State on the 31st. At one point in time, every team that they're playing was ranked. Iowa State ranked right now 14th, Kansas State ranked 11th, TCU 17th, Baylor was ranked, Kentucky was ranked, then you got K-State, and then Iowa State, and then Texas. That is an insane schedule for KU. It really, really is. But KU, it was funny. My wife took her dad to Allen Fieldhouse last night. Little dad-daughter date, if you will. And obviously my father-in-law is not from here. He's from San Antonio. He's always wanted to go to a game at Allen Fieldhouse. He's a big basketball guy. And so we were able to get him tickets. And you want to talk about the perfect game to go to for your first ever trip to Allen Fieldhouse? That was it. Afterwards, I'm thinking to myself, he got to see everything about Allen Fieldhouse. The magic at the end of the game that just makes KU win. Like that was so cool to see. And I'm texting my wife during the game. I'm like, can you believe this? I go, as your dad she's like, well, he hasn't stopped smiling. Like, you want to talk about a first game to go to ever at Allen Fieldhouse, and that's the game. Incredible. That was a lot of fun. Coming up, we'll wrap up the 1 o'clock hour. We'll get to more K-State with Kels Robinette. Start 2 o'clock hour. Finishing up this 1 o'clock hour here on Mic'd Up, we will get to Kels Robinette, a little bit of a edition of You Did What. Plus, I think for one of the very first times in, honestly, like sports, the NFLPA came out with their very first ever all-pro team voted on by players. And this isn't like the top 100 from the NFL where they put the top 100 players together and it's just a made-for-TV type of situation. No, this is the first ever players NFLPA all-pro team. It was released today, and it is brilliant. It really is. And it's to the point now where I want every other sports league to do this. If you're a professional sports league, I want your union to follow the criteria that the Players Association had for voting on the All-Pro team. We'll get to that coming up in the 2:00 hour as well, to wrap up this edition of Mic'd Up. But it's perfect. I don't think you could do any better than what the NFLPA did with their All-Pro team. But we'll talk more K-State. Get a little football. I know Fulton talked with Kels after the Sugar Bowl. Got a few other questions for Kels Robinette when it comes to the football side of things. Talk plenty of basketball. We'll get to an edition of You Did What, and we'll talk more about the Kansas City Chiefs coming up in the 2:00 hour. That's all coming up here on Mic'd Up here on 580 WIBW. It is the final hour of Mic'd Up coming up on this Wednesday. It does not feel like a Wednesday. It really, really doesn't. But thank you so much for joining us. Jake LeBon along with Kyle Manthe filling in for Fulton Castor. Fulton off today. He'll be back coming up tomorrow. Want to thank Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News coming on in the noon hour to talk all things Big 12 hoops along with KU and K-State. Enjoy that. We will get to a little bit of the NFL and their very first all-pro team that the players get. I think it's really cool. Really, really like that. Dig that a lot. We'll get to more Chiefs as well as K-State. And we're going to talk all things K-State right now. Kellis Robinett of the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. You can follow him on Twitter at Kellis Robinett. Kellis, how are you doing on this Wednesday afternoon after another thrilling, close, and exciting game from Jerome Tang and the K-State basketball team?
Yeah, doing good here in Basketballville, Manhattan, Kansas, center of the basketball universe all of a sudden. Yeah, I'm doing good. My ears are still kind of ringing a little bit from the Octagon of Doom, but otherwise, yeah, no complaints.
So is the Doom back? Keontae Johnson said that was one of the best crowds he's ever played in front of. Was it that electric, that hype?
I mean, it's pretty good for a game that didn't involve Kansas or a number one ranked team, something like that. It's probably right up there with the best I've heard since I started covering the team in 2009, especially considering there's a 6 o'clock game on a Tuesday without students in town. The spring semester doesn't start for a little bit yet. So to sell the place out, for it to be loud, and then to top things off with that dunk from Keontae Johnson at the end, that was truly loud. That was really hard to hear the person talking next to you at that moment. So, yes, I would say the Doom is back, and it's probably only going to get better next week when the Jayhawks come to town, because that is going to be really loud for that one.
Dan Lucero, 580 Sports Talk, Dan Lucero, left here, and he said he ran into traffic. K-State fans going to have to get there a little bit early. A bunch of fans missed the start of the game because they're not used to having a sellout crowd there, it looks like.
Yeah, even I ran into that a little bit. I left my house a little earlier than usual, but maybe 45 minutes before tip-off, and I kind of regretted that a little bit when I hit traffic on Kimball. I was like, wait a minute, what are all these cars doing out here? But yeah, I mean, change of the times. Before the calendar year switched to 2023, Kansas State wasn't ranked. They were playing a bunch of bye games at home that nobody really cared about. Now they're in the top 15 and playing Big 12 game. It's a hot ticket.
Do you think this game means that win last night, that game means more because of the way K-State won the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it shows a lot about them that they could go on this road trip where they're winning by making shots, and Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson look like they can do no wrong, and the basket's as big as the ocean when they're scoring 116 to Texas, 97 to Baylor. To turn around and then play a team that says, no, we're not going to let you do that. We're going to make you play half court. We're going to make you run sets. We're going to try to turn this into a rock fight. We're going to try to win with defense. To find a way to win in that setting with a lot of pressure on them too was impressive, because it does change a little bit when you go from, the 100 to the hunt. And all season long, Jerome Tang's been the coach who's been saying, hey, let's go and pull an upset against these other teams. This was a little bit of a role reversal there, and they handled it well, and they won a close game. So, yeah, I thought you could say it was just as impressive as the other games they won, even though Oklahoma State isn't as highly regarded as, say, Texas or Baylor.
Oklahoma State defensively, what did they do? Did K-State, in your opinion, miss shots? Like, I know you didn't watch the game because you were doing press conference stuff probably at that time, but KU missed like 8,000 layups against Oklahoma. And it was very simple. I mean, if they make 20% of those layups, KU wins by double figures. And they don't have to have that comeback at the end. Whereas in your mind, watching that game, did Oklahoma State really find a solution to slow down Kansas State? Because K-State's scoring 116 and 97 and 85, and all of a sudden this. Like, did Oklahoma State find a blueprint, you think?
Well, I think they did some things that other Big 12 teams will try to replicate. The main thing is they refuse to run with Kansas State, which is one thing that Texas and Baylor just said, yeah, sure, you want to run, we'll run. Oklahoma State was not that. They drained clock, they played slower, and that played in their favor. They also mixed up defenses quite a bit. I think I saw a triangle and two out there for a little while. They were zone, they were man, and one thing players said in the first half that slowed them down was there were a lot of possessions early on where they couldn't really tell if Oklahoma State was in zone or if they were in man, and it took a few passes and seconds dwindling off the clock before they figured out what in the world they wanted to do. And that obviously led to some confusion and made things a little bit harder. But the main thing Oklahoma State did was they just had some bodies inside. They made Kansas State work for points in the paint. They didn't let them just get in there and have freebies. And they did a really good job of cutting off passing lanes. Where Kansas State did a lot of damage against Texas and Baylor was when they did get transition opportunities. Nobody was stopping them from moving the ball. Oklahoma State definitely prevented them from moving the ball in the first half. They forced Kansas State to turn the ball over 9 times, limited to 8 assists. That's the first time anything like that has happened. So they just made things a lot harder for them, and the shots were more heavily guarded, and you could tell that Oklahoma State plays defense that's just a little bit better level than what we've seen previously.
I did not expect Caleb Boone to look like, prime Nick Collison. What happened there? And the reason I'm surprised is because Texas has got big dudes. Now, granted, they scored obviously in the hundreds as well, but is that the biggest question mark? If you've got a big guy inside, that is going to be a big problem for K-State.
I mean, if you're going to force them into a half-court game, then yeah, I think it is. And Oklahoma State was even missing one of their other really good shot blockers in there. But yeah, the one thing that Kansas State really doesn't have going for it right now, especially with David Nagusin out indefinitely, they don't have just a big post player, a big center they can throw the ball into and make things happen. Like Naquan Tomlin, he's tall, he's athletic, but you saw last night when he did get it in there, it's kind of hard for him to finish around the basket when he's got big guys contesting against him. Same thing with Baby. He does a lot of things well, but beating another guy back to the basket just really isn't one of them. So that's something to keep an eye on moving forward. Is that I would say in Kansas State's first 3 Big 12 games, they kind of won without needing a traditional 5. Last night, you could tell for the first time they kind of missed having a big guy in there. That was one game where they could have used a little bit better inside presence.
We're talking with Kellis Robinett, covers the K-State Wildcats for the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star. Check him out on Twitter at Kellis Robinett. All right. The play that is going to lead the video montage coming up on Tuesday. And if they don't, then everybody there for K-State in the media department needs to be fired. A lob from Marquise Noel to Keontae Johnson. It was such a surprise that even Jerome Tang was swearing in his mind, and he even had to do his own push-ups, which makes me like Jerome Tang even more. Did you see that happen? Did you think he was throwing it out of bounds? Did Keontae Johnson come out of nowhere in your mind for the biggest play of the year? They were up by 3, 38 seconds left. I mean, if you make that, I mean, the game was essentially ended right there. Did you see Keontae Johnson climbing the ladder and grabbing it one-handed and looking like Grant Hill in the NCAA tournament and dunking it with one hand?
Yeah, I was probably more like Jerome Tang. I thought it was going to bounce off his fingertips and fall out of bounds. Not because I didn't think he was athletic enough to get up and do it, but that's been more of a Naquan Tomlin play. If you want somebody to dunk and do an alley-oop, that's the guy you go to, not Johnson. And also, the alley-oop came from so far out. I mean, Oklahoma State doubled Marquise Noel that whole possession, had him way out, pretty much near the half-court line before he got up to the three-point line and put up that lob. That's not really where you like to see a lob start. You'd like to see him in the paint where it's a little bit easier for the big man to track and everything. But I will say that there have been 2 or 3 other times this season where Marquise has kind of thrown Hail Mary passes from way far away, and the person who usually finishes those dunks is Keontae Johnson. So practice paid off. He made it happen. I was a little surprised he was able to grasp that ball so firmly based on how high up it went. But, man, he made it look pretty effortless to just one hand go up, slam it down. Yeah, that was right up there with the Cartier Jada dunk, the windmill that he had against KU a few years ago. That should definitely lead off some videos of Bramlage for the foreseeable future.
Alrighty. You tweeted this out, and I thought this was fantastic. K-State wins. It's now what looks like to be a tradition. You tweet out Jerome Tang post-game tradition where he goes in front of the K-State crowd. They're playing the Wabash, and he's going back and forth. He's having a good old time. Is that something that you think he does spur of the moment, or do you think that is something that is planned, and this is something that, you know, the K-State fans like, you know, after a win, he's pumped, he's excited. I thought that was great video that you had on Twitter yesterday. Do you think that's planned? Is that going to be a staple now?
I think after big wins, it will be. I think it was impromptu when he did it the first time when they beat Nebraska in Kansas City. I think he was just really happy and excited to look out and see a big crowd at T-Mobile Center, and he went to midcourt and did that. And you know what? He got a really good reaction from it. The media loved it. The fans loved it. The players loved it. So what does he do at their next big home game when they beat West Virginia? He goes to midcourt and does it again. Maybe Oklahoma goes to midcourt and does it again. And I thought it was interesting. The first couple times he did it, it took everybody off guard. Like when he did it against Nebraska, I was kind of like, what in the world is going on here? I kind of fumbling through my pockets to get my phone to record it then. Yesterday, there was a gaggle of photographers, at least like 7 or 8, tracking his every move because they knew what he was going to do. They wanted to shoot that, shoot him dancing. And it was actually for a little bit kind of hard to get a good line of sight to where he was dancing where I was sitting. But, hey, people love it. That and the deal where the players walk around the stadium and high-five the fans after every game. I think those are going to be staples for as long as Jerome is the coach here at Kansas State. And, you can't argue with the results so far.
So what's the magic recipe? What's the elixir, the magic, Michael's secret stuff? If you could put it to one reason that they're 15-1, atop the Big 12, ranked 11th, because he's a first-year head coach. First-year head coaches are not supposed to do this. They had 2 guys back from last year, and one of the guy is a role player this year in Massoud. Marquise Noel went from a roller coaster of a point guard to the second coming of Steph Curry. Keontae Johnson looks like Ochai Agbaji right now. Like what? And they're playing like that. They've been playing together for 10 years. Can you put something at least together that says this is the main reason why?
That's a great question. I think probably just boils down to the energy that Jerome Tang has brought to the locker room and the belief he's brought to this program for years. Even when things were going good, I feel like Kansas State fans kind of were just waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the monster around the corner. They knew some losses were going to follow every win they got. It's kind of the opposite right now. You win a game and then you're not thinking about what bad is going to happen in the future. You're thinking about what the next great thing is going to be, and you're thinking about it being even better. And I don't know. There's just a weird sense of confidence and belief in this team right now. I can't totally explain it because when I look at the roster, I still see some holes. Like we mentioned, they don't really have a true big man. They don't have a ton of depth. Until last night, they haven't played a great defense in a conference game. So, you'd like to say they're not going to win every game the rest of the way, but I don't know. They're probably thinking that they can. Really what it just boils down to, why it's happened, I don't know. I'm not there behind every practice to tell you, but when you've got a guy playing at the level that Marquise Noel is, and then you bring in a veteran presence like Keontae Johnson, they've got arguably the 2 best players in the league right now. Until they cool off, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat them.
They got TCU Saturday. They know what game's coming up on Tuesday. Is this a trap game, or are there no trap games because the Big 12 is that good?
I hadn't considered that. I mean, maybe it is. It's hard to not look forward to a home game against Kansas. The one reason I would maybe doubt that is because this just doesn't seem like a group that looks ahead. And other than Marquise and Ish, there's nobody on this team who's even experienced the game against Kansas. So, I mean, are guys like Desi Sills and Naquan Tomlin worried about the Jayhawks right now? Probably not. Jerome Tang might be, because I mean he understands how important that game is. He doesn't even refer to Kansas as Kansas. He calls them the school down the road. So he views them as a rival. He knows what's up. But I think they'll bring their A game to TCU. It'll just be a hard game. That I think is what makes it difficult. Not that it's a difficult game, or not that it's a weird spot on the schedule. I think that TCU is just really, since they've gotten their guys healthy, they've been really good. And if it weren't for Iowa State making a crazy shot against them in their last game in Fort Worth, they'd be undefeated in conference play right now. And we'll see what they do against Texas tonight. If they win that game, then shoot, that's a all of a sudden a game with some real big heavyweights.
Alrighty, we'll talk to you after the Sunflower Showdown. Is Jerome Tang 1-0 against Bill Self?
I I don't know what to predict about that game. If because that crowd, like we talked about, Octagon of Doom being back. Yeah, it was back, but it's going to be to a completely different level on Tuesday. And I don't know. K-State teams always kind of respond to that crowd in different ways. There have been times when they used it as fuel and looked unstoppable. There have been other times where it almost kind of has an adverse effect and it makes them tight, and it doesn't really help as much as you think. So how do they deal with that? Does Marquise Noel stay hot? If he keeps playing like Steph Curry, then yeah, I think they beat Kansas, especially at home. But one little wild card I'm looking forward to in this game is, Bill Self is just going to have all kinds of junk defenses to throw out and deploy in this game. He's going to go in zone, triangle in 2, box in 1, some kind of weird name thing we haven't heard of yet, where they're putting like 3 guys on Marquise Noel at a time and not guarding some other player. I don't know. Like last year, Kansas State shot the lights out on KU, and it looked like they were going to win in the first half. And all of a sudden, I don't remember if they went triangle in 2 or box in 1, but they came out with some goofy defense that totally, cooled K-State down, and KU comes back to win. So Self just always has some goofy stuff like that ready for K-State. He's already thinking about it. So that to me is the wild card. Can K-State handle that whenever it comes out?
No, I'm with you on that. That's a great point. That really is. That's going to be an exciting one coming up on Tuesday. I do have to ask you a football question. K-State's preseason ranking next year is going to be what?
I'm thinking between 15 and 20. I think they're going to finally. They don't normally get the benefit of the doubt. They don't normally get respect in the preseason polls, but after winning the Big 12 with Will Howard coming back, I think people will look past the fact that they're not returning some of their best guys like Deuce Vaughn, and put them in the top 20. That's where I think they'll be.
Do you think K-State will find a way to fill the shoes of Deuce Vaughn?
I do, actually, yes. I mean, it won't look the same. It might not be quite as exciting. You might not have quite as much big play potential next season at running back, but the cupboard is, hardly bare back there. I really liked what DJ Giddens did as a redshirt freshman. I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but he rushed for over 500 yards while filling in for Deuce this season, and actually had 80-plus all-purpose yards in the bowl game against Alabama. You can't do that if you're a bum. So I think he'll step in and be a pretty good running back. And then they just landed Trayshawn Ward from Florida State, who was their leading rusher in their bowl game, and also had over 500 or maybe 600 yards this year for Florida State. So that's a nice little 1-2 punch they got going. And let's not forget that they're returning their entire offensive line. So I think they're going to be able to run the ball just fine next season. My question with the offense is going to be a little bit more pass-oriented. Without Malik Knowles, without Cade Warner, who do they throw to? They're going to need somebody to step up there to open things up a little bit more.
All right, last two for the road. Very, very simple. We talk about Jerome Tang, and he's batting 1,000 right now. Here's what I wonder if what's going to happen coming up on Tuesday, Kellis. Here, see if you can follow me. K-State's crowd is going to be hyped. We agree with that. I think K-State, what if K-State's crowd starts the Big League Chew chant? And it's, you know what I'm talking about? It's not Big League Chew. It's expletive KU, right?
Mhm.
If that occurs, we've seen Jerome Tang at a football game try to stop it. I'm thinking Jerome Tang, if he hears that, will leave the huddle and go and scold the student section. And if the student section stops it, he's the most powerful man in Manhattan.
I can't disagree. I really can't. The only thing I'll say is that if he could get him to stop it at the football game, I think people will understand they probably shouldn't yell it in the basketball arena. But yes, if they do that and he hears it, I think that actually is exactly what happens, and no disagreement.
All righty. And lastly, it is January 11th. I didn't have a chance to talk to you last week because I was gone. Do you have a New Year's resolution, Kellis?
I mean, I'd really love to, make $1 billion this year somehow. If you got tips for that, I'm all ears.
I don't have any tips, but if I did,
No?
I would share them with you, because then I would be worth $1 billion, and then I would try to help other people that way. So if I do find one, I will let you know.
Okay. Well, I mean, my number 2 resolution would be to appear on your show more.
To do what?
To come and talk on your radio show even more often than I already do.
Well, we appreciate it, Kellis. We think your insight is fantastic, my friend. Thank you so much, as always, for coming on and talking with us.
All right. My pleasure. We'll talk to you next week after, oh boy, could be a good one in the Sunflower Showdown.
I can't wait. I'm excited for that one. Kellis Robinette of the Wichita Eagle and the Kansas City Star does a great job. The video of Jerome Tang is excellent. Kellis did a fantastic job of where he's seated and checking out that video. If you want to check it out, it's really, really good. But great stuff there from Kellis Robinette. Coming up next, the NFL PA, the Players Association, actually has the best way to determine who's the best of the best. We'll get to that next. did what on this edition of Mic'd Up? All right. This really is. You never know if someone's being serious or not in a message board. All right. You don't know. But with the team that we were talking about, you know they're a little bit nuts. All right. Message boards to me are a place where sadness, hilarity meet. I don't know if you know, Kyle, but the Kentucky Wildcats are having a tough go right now. The Kentucky Wildcats lost to South Carolina at Rupp. Even so that people are questioning Coach Cal. They're like, oh, he's done. Well, on the message boards called Cats Illustrated, this is what a post is. Now, this is BBN, all right? Big Blue Nation. They're crazy. It says here, this is from Dickie V the Third. Now, it's a picture of Dick Vitale kissing Ashley Judd. And it says here, Kentucky basketball is my life. My wife stood in front of me 15 years ago and declared it was her or Kentucky basketball. I did the CATS, 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 cats chant as she walked out the door. UK basketball is all I look forward to all week and tune in to watch this poop emoji. I am at a loss for words and emotions.
That's incredible.
I got nothing, man. Like, that's incredible. Like, I am married. I have a wife. And if she turned and looked at me and was like, Jake, it's either me or, golf, or me or the Ichabods, or me or the Chiefs or the Royals, I'd probably say to her, I think that's a bit strong, sweetie. I think that is a bit strong. But then I would not look at her and go, CATS, 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 as she walks by. Like, I want that to be true. I don't know if it is, because you just never know with message boards, but because it is Kentucky, I lean that that's probably true.
I also want it to be true, but I also don't, because I want to believe that someone sat there and came up with that just out of the thin air.
That guy's a
Because
great
that's
creative
hilarious.
writer then.
Mm-hmm.
He should have a job as a writer for Hollywood, like a comedy show, because that's hysterical. Like, I'm at a loss for words and emotions. Kentucky basketball is my life. As she walked out the door.
Saying the chant.
That's what I got for You Did What. I don't know if it's true or not. It's on Cats Illustrated. It's hysterical.
My You Did What will be hard to top that. Last night, the Miami Heat played the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Okay.
They won the game by 1 point. That's not important. In the second quarter, Dwayne Dedman, he's a bench player for the Heat. He got into an argument with Eric Spoelstra and other coaches on the bench, and then he was walking to the back row, and he slapped a massage gun, and it went onto the court during the middle of the game. And
Did it really? I gotta look this up.
He proceeded to be ejected.
Did he really?
He had a very, very impactful 5-minute stint and got into a disagreement. The gun almost hit someone. Like, it was a couple feet away from hitting a Thunder player, which probably would have been a little worse for him. It was a
Yeah, I'm looking at it
ferocious
right
slap.
now. I'm looking at it right. It went all the way to like the top of the key. Oh my goodness.
From the second row behind the bench too.
Yes.
Like, it had some range, it had some power.
It really did. Like, I'm thinking, I'm not going to be able to see this. It just went right onto the court. I mean, that thing shot onto the court.
It's tough to have a worse night than getting into a fight with your coaches and then being ejected because you threw something on the court. incidentally, maybe, who knows, but it's tough to have a worse night than that.
Also, Eric Spoelstra, still the head coach of the Miami Heat. He's been there for a while now, right?
I believe since 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. It's been a hot minute.
He's been there for a long time. 2008. Wow, I did not realize he'd been there that long. Eric Spoelstra, been in the NBA Finals 5 times. Now, granted, do you count the COVID final?
Why not? He's been to the finals 5 times. It's fair to say he's been underneath Dwayne Dedman's skin at least once.
That is so true. We'll get one more timeout. I want to come back and talk about the NFL and the Players Association All Pro, because I think the way that they're doing it, every pro league should do it like this. It's great stuff. We'll get to that coming up next here on Mic'd Up. Their Players Association All Pro team. And this is the first time that the NFL Players Association has released their All Pro team. The NFL Players Association says this: for too long, we have allowed everyone else to define the best of us as players. That ends now. It says here, this year we made the call with the first ever Players All-Pro team. We asked players across the league to select who had the most impact this season. The players were tasked with voting for the best player at their same position or the position they lined up against. You could not vote for yourself. You could not vote for your teammate. You could only vote for your position or someone that you went up against. Okay, for an example, Travis Kelce. Let's say you're Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce could not vote for Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce could not vote for Patrick Mahomes or Joe Tooney or Juju Smith-Schuster or Chris Jones or, Bolton or Willie Gay or whoever. You can't vote for a teammate. Travis Kelce can only vote for other tight ends or somebody that he went up against. Somebody like a linebacker or a safety, I'm assuming. Same thing if you are a wide receiver. If you are, let's say, Justin Jefferson, Vikings wide receiver. Justin Jefferson could not vote for Kirk Cousins, could not vote for a teammate. He could only vote for wide receivers or a cornerback, someone who went up against him. Hey, man, he's really good. And I think that is fantastic here. I think this isn't like the NFL Top 100 where we have been told by several NFL players that they just fill out who their buddies are. They don't really care because it's just made for TV. This is legit. I love the fact that you can only vote for your position or somebody that you went up against, and you cannot vote for your teammates. I think that is fantastic. And just to let you know, here are the all pros. Patrick Mahomes was named quarterback. Travis Kelce was named tight end. Wide receivers, Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. Running back, Josh Jacobs. Fullback, Kyle Juszczyk. Offensive linemen go Trent Williams, Joe Bitonio, Lane Johnson, Zach Martin, and Jason Kelce. So you got Kelce brothers, first team All-Pro, according to the players. For the defense, Chris Jones, Aaron Donald, D-line. Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, edge rushers. Dexter Lawrence, your nose tackle. Linebackers, Roquan Smith and Fred Warner. Safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Safety, Derwin James. Corners, Darius Slay and Pat Surtain. Special teams, kicker, Jason Myers. Punter, Tommy Townsend. Punt returner, Kevontae Turpin. And kick returner, Cordero Patterson. So the Chiefs had 4 All-Pros: Townsend, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. You should be able to do this in every single league. The NBA. Very simple. Steph Curry, point guard. He can vote for other point guards because point guards guard other point guards. And you can't vote for a teammate. Why couldn't you do this in baseball? If you are, let's say you're Vinny Pasquantino, first baseman. You can't vote for yourself. Can't vote for any Royals. You can only vote for other first basemen. I feel like you should be able to do this in every single league. Every single league. This is, to me, way more of a... This is the best All-Pro. Like, I don't have... There's only one spot where I go, I wonder if they got it right. Like, this is the best All-Pro team that I think you can put together. I think Mahomes is quarterback. I think easily Travis Kelce tight end. Justin Jefferson should be Offensive Player of the Year. Devontae Adams is terrific. Like, if you want to put Tyreek Hill there, okay. But to me, those two are the two best. Josh Jacobs led the league in rushing. He was excellent. Trent Williams, Batonio, Johnson, Martin, and Kelsey. Yeah, those are the 5 best offensive linemen. Chris Jones, dominant up front. Aaron Donald, yes. Nick Bosa, probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Fred Warner, Roquan Smith, excellent. Minka Fitzpatrick, terrific. Derwin James, we know how good Derwin James is. Pat Surtain has been awesome. Darius Slay intercepts passes all over the place. Like, this is the best all-pro team that I think you can put together. Like, the only one would be like Micah Parsons. Where do you put Micah Parsons? Is he an edge rusher? Is he an outside linebacker? They call it off-ball linebacker, edge rusher. I would probably put Micah Parsons over Myles Garrett. But I think that's it. I think this is terrific. I think this is excellent. I think what the NFLPA has done with the rules, what they're doing, I think this is something that should be copycatted in the NBA and in Major League Baseball. Even the NHL. I mean, it should be simple. Not hard. Coming up next, we will finish things off. We will get to a little Chiefs news. And then we'll get to the mic drop here coming up on Mic'd Up. Please let me know if you put down money on K-State at plus 15,000. That's incredible. Alrighty, what do you got for your mic drop?
My mic drop, I'll stay in the Big 12. My mic drop is that KU and K-State are just playing incredible in basketball. Really, just the whole Big 12 is awesome right now. Every game is good, unless you're Texas Tech last night. And I'm so excited for next Tuesday. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be madness.
I know, I can't wait for it. That is also going to be my mic drop. Is K-State under Jerome Tang has found a way to get his guys to believe in themselves. K-State for the longest time would just go full Oklahoma and just melt down at the end of a game. That is what Kansas State would do under head coach Bruce Weber. They are not doing that now. They are making the winning plays. Look at the last 4 close games for the Cats. Up by 3. An incredible alley-oop from Noel to KJ Johnson, and they make their free throws at the end of the game. And they actually cover the 5.5-point spread. I told people yesterday, parlay them. I said, K-State's going to cover the 5.5, and Oklahoma's going to cover the 10.5. Hope you listened to me, because if you did, go take your significant other out for a nice seafood dinner. Against West Virginia, they made their free throws at the end of the game. Keontae Johnson, big layup. Against Baylor, Masood hits the big time 3. Everything during crunch time is coming up positive for Kansas State. That is coaching. That is belief. That is your guys having confidence. The most important thing for a college athlete is confidence. If you think that that ball is going in, you have a 100% better success rate than if your confidence is shook. Look at college football. Will Howard this year. His confidence through the roof. Last year, 2 years ago, he didn't have any confidence. He has said that. Confidence is the most important thing for a college athlete. You give me a 2-star guy who's got all the damn confidence in the world. He is going to outperform a 5-star kid who thinks every shot that's going up ain't going in. I can't stress to you enough how important confidence is in the college football world and college basketball as well. That'll do it for this edition of Mic'd Up. Coming up, we got 580 Sports Talk. Coming up tomorrow, we will talk a little college football with Paul Meyerberg. We'll get into some more Kansas City Chiefs news and notes. We will get to all of that. We'll talk a little NFL wildcard weekend matchups as well. All of that coming up tomorrow at noon. Fulton will be back with us, and I get to annoy Fulton again with some dad jokes that'll work out perfectly. Coming up next, though, we got 580 Sports Talk. If you missed anything, head to our website, 580www.com. Check us out on YouTube, Sports on 580. We'll talk to you tomorrow at noon. Have yourself a great afternoon.